It's Dan 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 Show. Dan 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 Show.
And so, after playing for some time in the Dr. Space Toad experience with Captain, first of all on drums and then later on keyboards, I found myself in Captain's solo band, which he called the Punk Floyd, with Sir Dangerous Dave on bass and the incredible Gary Dreadful on drums. The Memoirs of Gary Dreadful here. I'd seen Gary around a few times at Club Space Toad, where he occasionally sang Words by the Bee Gees, very well too. Gary is the most cheerful, friendly, funny bloke you could ever meet. He's an Essex boy, in case you couldn't tell. So he would have fitted well into EastEnders, except that he's far too cheerful and not argumentative enough. So he'd constantly be full of Cockney sayings of his own. One of these and one of these. A fag, or growler, as he called them, and a can of Stella. What's that all about? Know what I mean? It's got to be done. How's your bum for love bites? And so on. He had lots of charisma, and when he sang, he would have done really well on the X Factor. Musically, he liked upbeat disco songs like Wham's Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Anything with some ridiculous falsetto vocals on it. And he was away. Suddenly he found himself in a world of psychedelia and punk. So, the Punk Floyd were to tour mostly Britain and Germany, where this little memory comes from. Bavarians, though very hospitable, do not seem to understand the concept of vegetarian food. Thus, Captain was given a bun with cheese in it, which had been microwaved at the venue. This was sent back promptly, and an alternative offering appeared. A plate of plain spaghetti with tomato ketchup and nothing else on top. Yummy. This stayed uneaten in the dressing room, stiffening with cold like yesterday's washing up in my parents' kitchen. It came in handy later. After the gig, I collapsed with drunken exhaustion and must have fallen asleep, because I awoke to find myself under a sculpture of chairs erected by Captain and the others over my head. Suddenly I became berserk, with a manic frenzy. Running around the dressing room, playing objects as musical instruments, I came upon the spaghetti. Handfuls of the wriggly stuff flew in all directions as Cat, Gary and the support band, the Hollywood Tees, joined in. Cat recalled. Backstage, the downstage bar soon filled up with the support band and their females, plus a bunch of other jolly folk, some of them skinning up king-sized joints. A fresh bottle of bourbon appeared, and before long all hell broke loose. Spaghetti and beer mats were flying through the air, while Monty was playing demented drum solos on anything unfortunate enough to be close to him. How many bottles he broke, along with a chair that got demolished, I cannot say. But the club manager, who is grooving a big way himself, told us next time we play there we would have to deduct from the breakages from your fee. We never played there again. I got bloody food all over my dress, and Tom, the German tour manager, ended up wrestling on the floor in a flood of beer and broken glass with a footballer. What a night! And the caption for the photos ran, Monty goes from flaked out to hyper in a matter of minutes. Seconds, I would have said. The next morning we returned rather sheepishly to pick up our stuff, and entered the dressing room and found it spotlessly clean and pristine. It was as if nothing had ever happened. Captain later wrote, woke up and looking out the window at the wonderful mountainous view, I noticed the Growler twins skulking about, emitting puffs of smoke. Out comes the megaphone, don't pollute the fresh air of the Alps, you vile social outcasts. And finally, for this little presentation of Memoirs from the world of punk Floyd, a little bit from our tour in the UK. In the hotel in Stoke, Gary Dreadful spied the shoe-shining machine and decided it might be fun to try and buff the end of his penis with it. Again, we returned to Fibbers, our favourite, and we had a good one there. Kirsty joined us on stage and danced around in a green tinsel wig. In Cleethorpes, we had created an unusual stage set with some drum risers and an old Union Jack flag. The best attended show was in Glasgow. We played in a club called the Cat House. I had found a crazy patch of percussive noises on the new core, and so myself and Gary would start the encore with a drum and percussive keyboard duet. After this, Captain would take over from Gary on drums, and we would play the Monkeys' I'm a Believer. Gary did a really good job of this, camping and gospeling it up for the audience. Are you believers? He would end it with a high note, his neck veins bulging out as he sang, I'm a believer. He was great entertainment. After the gig, we, rather unwisely, went to a club where all the drinks were 90p, and this led to another scene of debauchery that nicely rounds out 1996, the year of booze. I remember getting quite depressed in the club. I was missing Kirsty, and I wasn't really into it anymore, but the others seemed happy to stay up in spite of the fact that we were in a B&B and be chucked out at 10:30 the next day. We staggered back to the horrid place, where I was sharing a room with Fran, who was our tour manager at the time, and Richard, another reprobate who'd come along to help with roadie duties and merchandise. Captain intuitively called him Mr. Dodgy, and so he proved to be. I awoke in the night still drunk, in desperate need to pee, and remembered that our room wasn't en suite. The toilet was outside, somewhere in the dark. I didn't want to wake anyone by putting on the light, but I was absolutely desperate. No time to mess around. Then I recalled that there was a small sink on one side of the room, and made my way in the dark to where I thought it was. Ah, blessed relief. However, in my drunken disorientation, I had got the map of the room the wrong way round. I had pissed on a shelf next to the wardrobe. I must have been disorientated because I tried to get into Fran's bed with him, still in it. Fucking hell, you queer or summit. Oh, sorry, Fran. Back in the security of my own bed, I sank into a dreamy darkness. Suddenly, it was light, and there was a banging on the door, and the loud voice of a Scotch dragon booming forth, "Oh, you's getting up!" Ah! Suddenly, the horror of my mistake became apparent. Not only that, though, there was a wet pair of pants lying on the floor. Well, they're not mine. Whose? Turned out Mr. Dodgy had had an accident of his own in his bed. Very quickly we gathered our stuff together for a hasty exit and somehow managed to avoid the old morag. But Sir Dangerous got cornered by it. "Whose band are you lot anyway?" she asked him. We're Eric Clapton's backing band," he said. "Well, I'm going to tell everyone about Eric Clapton's B-Boys," she apparently replied. "Nice one, Dave."